As part of the strategy to create jobs in reducing the effect of COVID-19 on the youths, the federal government planned the employment of 774,000 Nigerians. These youths will be engaged in special public works program aimed at cushioning the effects of economic downturn. However, these jobs seem to be in jeopardy as there are some controversy between the Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Mr. Festus Keyamo, and the Joint Committee of the National Assembly on Employment and Labor. Now, this job creation strategy is also contained in the economic stability sustainability plans submitted to the President sometime last week. Now, joining me now to look at these whole issues is a development strategist, Dr. Emeka Okengwo. Thank you very much, Dr. Okengwo, for joining us on the program.
Pleasure to have me. Thank you.
So what do you make of this drama yesterday between the Minister of State for Labor and Employment and the Joint Committee of the National Assembly on Employment and Labor over the planned employment of 774,000 Nigerians? I mean, for a country that is serious about getting its people out of poverty.
Well, it is what it is. It's what it is. It's drama. But in that drama, you also now have, what you might be able to call, two things that can be deduced from it. Did the minister, was he right in taking the position he took? Yes, he was, because by law, administratively, once the act of the plan is. The national budget is planned, then it becomes an act, and whatever it is that comes out of it, it can only be oversighted by the National Assembly. So on that point, operationally, he's right. But again, you must also give it to the National Assembly that as a representative of people, they might also want to be involved in the process to make certain that their people get the best deals, because that's why they're elected. So in being a drama, yes, you might be able to say it's a little dramatic, but I mean, that is what you see in a democracy. It's all about, people struggling to be heard, people struggling to be seen to be doing the proper things. So I don't think it's a very major, it's just a flash in the pan, if you ask me. But again, it raises also some serious issues about, the synergies that have been built, between the legislative and the executive arm of government. I believe that before that, event, there should have been some, backyard meetings, for the issues raised to have been ironed out before it was brought to the fore.
Now, let's look at the whole economic sustainability plan of the federal government. We've witnessed several plans in the past. We had the ERGP, Transformation Agenda, Needs, 7-point agenda. In what ways are the economic stability plan, sustainability plan, different?
It's different because this is one plan that is target-based. It's one plan that is planned around, the COVID, pandemic. Okay, these other plans were very general, but in this case, government looked at the situation, looked at the global economic situation, and then came out with what you call a target-based plan. And it's a very well articulated plan because, the assumptions that were used in drawing the conclusions, were also well thought through. Okay, you can talk, maybe if you allow me to discuss maybe one or two of the assumptions. Assumption number one was that if you left the economy, the way it was without any injection, any capital injection, we are going to be getting about 4.4, 4.5 negative growth. If you injected 500 billion, it was going to reduce to about 1.9%. If you put in 2.3 billion, it was going to be reducing to about 0.59, and then 3.6 trillion that was going to making it 0.46. And I think in the wisdom of those who evaluated the plan, they decided to go for the middle road, which was the 2.3 injection. What's good about it is that also the funding streams, of course, the 500 billion, the 1.1 trillion that was to come from the central bank, and then the rest of it that was supposed to have come from other financial sources. It's a good plan, but that is what it is, a plan. Okay, a policy, if you may. At best, maybe what you might be able to call government a fiscal strategy paper. But plans have two other legs that are very, very important. That is the program and the action. The moment you have a plan, it's from your plan you begin to draw your blueprints. It's from your plan you begin to draw your programs. It's from your plan you begin to draw your actions. And that is where your plan now begins to, the plan is the talk, if you may, and then action and program is the work. So I think what needs to be seen is how we're going to be walking the talk.
Now, the lifespan of this plan is about 12 months. Can all the plans be accomplished in 1 year? Is this not rather optimistic?
That's what I'm saying now, that you need to have the program. Okay, it's a plan. A plan is not actionable. It can only become actionable when you now begin to build the parameters. Okay, the monitoring framework. Okay, the project development framework. What projects you're going to be starting from first. I mean, you've just made allusions to one of them, which is the employment of 1,000 youths. If it is made in controversy and is not able to be resolved, of course, it's going to be affecting, the timelines. So what plans basically do is that they make projections, okay, to be able to say within the next 1 year, we intend to achieve A, B, C, if all things are equal. And for all those things to be equal, you must be able to develop, what you now call, and this is where you actually align, your physical strategy with your monitoring strategy and even your trade strategy and all that. This is where all these policies will come together to now form what you might be able to call, if you may, your Marshall Plan or a blueprint. 12 months, I think, is a little too short. We might not, and again, plans, I mean, they are not cast in stone. If in 12 months they are not able to achieve it, I think what we'll do is to be able to do a rollover. But what's critical for me is that for the first time in a long time in this country, we're actually developing a plan that is focused, primarily and specifically on the real sector of the economy to be able to protect and create jobs. That's very critical. We've never had, such a program before, and I've been in a lot of these plans, if you ask me. But for this, if we pursue it now with these other two legs, which is now make certain that we now develop a framework, okay, where you now probably have your project monitoring and evaluation, and then your project implementation. This is where your funding, will come in. I think we'll go a long way with it.
Now, the commitment of government to lift about 100 million people out of poverty by 2030 was, of course, affirmed in the document. But so far, have you really seen, you talked about implementation and working the talk. Have you really seen any seriousness that, yes, this, target 2030 is quite realistic?
It is if government, again, Chimezie, let's focus, let's not look at the plan. The plan is what it is, it's come out. And like I said, the assumptions that were put into, reaching the outputs of the plan are quite well articulated. I mean, they can go. But it's one thing, for you to be able to create what you call dummy corridors in development planning. Is another thing for you to be able to walk the talk, like I earlier said. Now, what's important for us to do is to look at those critical sectors that are be able to lift people out of poverty. And that's why I say I'm very excited that for once we are focusing on the real sector. And if you're focusing on the real sector, there are two broad sectors you want to look at when you look at the real sector. One is your agri sector. But like I always want to argue, I don't like the word agriculture. I like for us to be able to go the way of agro-allied resources. That way you're bringing in technology. That way you're bringing in infrastructure. That way you're no longer just talking about agriculture for food sustainability. You're also talking about agriculture for even, your medicinal needs, for your infrastructure, for even your housing. So when you talk about a plan that intends, or, the program to be able to get 100 million people out of poverty, China did it in less than 20 years. We can do it. It's very doable. Okay? It is as doable as yesterday. So what do I mean? But we need to be able to look at those things. Okay, I'll give you a typical example. And we've had this conversation severally. For a country that has 86,000, hectares, or 86 million hectares of arable land, less than 10 or 20% of that in use on a sustainable, basis. Imagine what will happen if we committed another 20 or 30 million of those houses into now what you might be able to call purpose-based, demand-driven, agricultural or agro-allied, resources projects. You'll be lifting immediately. You'll be employing about 20, 30 million people immediately. Imagine if we returned a lot of moribund mining facilities, and there are over 50 of them, littered all over the country. We'll also be creating a lot of jobs. So it's for us to be able to look at our natural resources and our natural endowments. We can be able to do it. And that's why I say the plan captures it, and that's what it should do. Be able to say these are the areas. But it is now the programming that now matters. It is now, developing what you call that your implementation framework, what some people will call, you know, a Marshall Plan, what some other people will call a blueprint. How do we start? Where do we start from? Okay, if you're talking about engaging 1,000 youths in your public works systems, how many can we be able to engage in the farms? How many can we be able to engage in the mines? What education do we need? What skills do we need? What technologies do we need to be able to get them to go there? I think we can be able to do. I mean, 100 million might even be small for me. You know, we can do as much as 160 million if we have, you know, what we might be able to call a purpose-driven, you know, program to be able to back up the economic sustainability plan. And
how much of a private sector contribution will be needed to really achieve all of this?
Again, the plan also mentioned the role of private sector. For me, I'm in the private sector, okay? We're looking forward to, I mean, government has made a pronouncement. And I'm struggling for us to be able to see that plan as a pronouncement. See that plan as a wish list. Okay, don't see it as the end. Don't see it as the blueprint. Okay, it is now for the private sector to be able to oversight that plan, look at the areas that are able to, you know, probably, you know, make the best impact and best inputs, and then begin to approach government on this. I know, you know, from my little experience and work relations with government, that there are also programs that are coming up that are trying to now, you know, tie. I mean, like, I know for certain, I don't know how public this is, that government is trying as much as they can to bring all the research centers, you know, in the country, across the ministries, under one major ministry. That is going to be able to help in marketing research outputs, okay, for instance. So what is important for us to do is to be able to look at the sustainability plan for what it is. And then remember that when you're doing a plan, there is another P and there's another A that must make that plan to become a successful economic program. That other P is the program, and the A is the action. So it now ties to what you call a plan program of action, PPA. If we put the remaining P and A into this plan, then you can be certain that we're good to go. But the moment you begin to interrogate this plan, and then you're interrogating it against program and interrogating it against actions, then you might be losing, okay, the monetary aspect of it, which is where, of course, the private sector, the banking sector, you know, the investment sector will come into the plan. You can't capture it in this document now because it's going to be driven by relationships that are going to be developed based, okay, on what you may be able to call business interest. And again, based on what you might be able to now call business support, you know, instruments that has been developed based on evaluations of whatever sector that the person wants to look into. If you now look at the plan and say, okay, government wants to lift 100 people out of poverty, the plan hasn't shown how, you might miss the mark. But if you say, okay, there's an interest of government to be able to lift 100 million people out of poverty, all right, let's look at the agro-allied sector. Can we be able to separate them into structures that will be able to now create maybe from animal husbandry 10 billion, poultry and allied products 10 billion, this and that 10 billion, crop production 10 billion, okay? You begin to now segregate. Then that way you can begin to now plan, you know, your fund inputs, you know, your infrastructure requirements, your human capital inputs, and all that. That's how plans, you know, now translate into programs and actions.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Okiongo. Let's just hope we eventually get this plan right. Thank you for your time.